Yes, so it's without further ado, here, let me hand over to Anne.
Thank you so much, Ruth. And to be honest, I've been messaging everybody who's been speaking just to say thank you. Because personally, it's been incredible to listen to everybody for the last 4 hours and just being really inspired what everybody's doing. You know, I've been with the long run for 13 years. It will be 14 actually in January, I'm realizing. And no matter what, it is incredible to see that you may think you know a member, and then you're like, there's all of these new things that they're constantly doing. It's never stopping. It is always evolving. And it makes me very proud of what people are doing. And at the same time, it's also great to listen is like just how everything is always evolving, and tourism isn't static. Our work is towards sustainability is not static. And I think, you know, we said earlier as well, it's like it's really important just to start a journey somewhere. So coming now from the travel businesses, we are coming to East Africa, where I am based and have been for the last 13 years. It is my chosen home and it is very dear to my heart. So I'm really glad that many of our members who are in Kenya are going to present in the next few sessions. So first, I would like to welcome Alzan from Sasab in Samburu. It's been wonderful to see how Sasab has evolved and changed. Originally, when Tanya and Mikey Kahatli wanted to join the long run, they have several properties. So I was like, well, which one should we pick? And we said, do me the favor, pick the one that is most challenging. And it's been incredible to see that the journey they have come and how far they have evolved in the years that we have worked together. So Alzan, thank you so much for presenting today. Looking forward to hear.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity you've given us to share our impact. So as I mentioned, I'm Alzan. I'm one of the property managers here at Sasab. We have been a member of the long run since 2015 and gained our GER status in 2022. Sasab is a luxury safari property with 11 tented rooms located in the Westgate Community Conservancy. I'm sorry about the birds. In the Westgate Community Conservancy, the area spans 400 square kilometers and is known as the gateway to the Great North. Prior to 1963, anyone traveling to this region actually needed permission from the local government. Long before we started welcoming guests in 2007, the directors, Tanya and Michael Hartley, had a vision of creating a community tourism product. And at its core, Sasab is essentially a partnership with the local Samburu people, bringing employment, celebrating the rich Samburu culture, and driving conservation in the area. Since opening, we have been lucky to have a positive relationship with the local community. And we re-signed our lease in 2022 for another 25 years. But that, of course, doesn't mean it's been without its challenges. I'll jump straight in and start with the issue around degraded land. The landscape is traditionally arid. However, with the recent drought, it became more visible. During the drought, we saw a decline in wildlife, like the endangered Grevy's zebra, and also in the livestock that is important to the pastoralist Samburu communities. Also contributing to this, of course, is overgrazing of certain areas. And out here, the Samburu value their livestock. They look at their wealth not as in how much money they have in their bank account, but how many cows, goats, and camels they have. So that also brings us to the issues around coexistence in the area. If we look at community, the community faces a huge challenge out here with their remoteness. They have limited access to adequate healthcare, with our closest hospital being 3 hours drive from this area, and many families not having access to vehicles. Our local dispensary often sees 60 people every day, and that number doubles easily when there are events or clan meetings in the area. The same problems are faced where education is concerned. There's lack of funding, lack of classrooms, and the educators just don't have all the resources they need. Culturally, we face the problem of the dilution of the culture. So factors such as modernization, migration, and urbanization all play a part in the loss of cultural practices, beliefs, and the loss of historical knowledge, and also the loss of traditional artifacts. Our main question here to ourselves was how we could share this with our guests. And on the topic of guests, we get to the last section of commerce. Here we had to prove to the community that the benefits from tourism would outweigh the loss of grazing land taken up by the site of the lodge and also by that of a 9 square kilometer area set aside for wildlife known as our core conservation area. Resolutions are never a one fit for everyone, so they're never universal. All these resolutions took time, planning, dedication from all involved, from our footprint trust team to our marketing, to the staff on the ground, the community, and also our guests, who all of this would not have been possible without them. Last year, we partnered with Just Dig It, an organization that works with local communities and local partners, focusing on re-greening the landscape. The picture shown is an example of this. So these buns or earth smiles collect the rainwater that would have otherwise just flowed out. This project resulted also in the number of buns within the area going up to 29,000 in 9 different areas. And so far this year, 136 bags of seeds have been collected. And this created an extra income for the women in the area. One of our other partners, the Grevi Zebra Trust, was also involved with us. And we previously partnered with them during the drought by donating bales of hay and distributing them around the conservancy to take care of the struggling Grevi zebra. Grevi Zebra Trust is also the only organization 100% dedicated to protecting the population of Grevi zebra here in Kenya. They also actively work with the community, educating the community on sustainable land use practices and conservation. We support and work with partners like Iwaso Alliance and the Laikipia Wild Dog Project. Not only do they focus on protecting the animals, but they also focus on addressing issues around human-wildlife conflict and focusing on educating the community members by making them part of these programs. Under community, so here at SASAB, we employ 70% of our staff from the local community as part of our agreement with the Conservancy. A recent survey among our staff showed that each staff member on average supported 10 family members, and that's a much larger impact than we had originally thought. Here I can use an example of one of my team members, Elijah. Elijah is a 24-year-old gentleman. He started here with us 2 years ago in our staff village as a casual staff member, just sorting rubbish. We loved his enthusiasm and we decided to make him a permanent part of the team in our maintenance department. And today, Elijah is actually one of the people that, one of our room stewards. So he takes care of the guest room and interacts with people on a daily basis. So he's got a front-facing role now. We don't stop by just creating opportunities in SASAB. We also open the wider company to everyone. So, for example, my colleague Eric will mention 2 of our conservation scholars who are currently over at his camp. And then on the scholars, so this is a lovely picture we can see. These are our conservation scholars. They visited us earlier this year because we held the annual conservation scholar camp here in Samburu. We had the opportunity here at SASAB to host them for a morning, taking them through our shamba, sharing stories with our blacksmith, and then we took them over to our 4C Center to share some inspirational videos with them. And this is a project that's very close to my heart because most of these kids I've seen from their point of application to the first day of school. It's really special. Then we also opened a new classroom thanks to a very generous guest at one of the primary schools. And this again, this was very, I've got shivers. This is very special to me. almost a year to the date of opening school, I had been there, and they had one block of class with 2 classrooms, and the toddlers were all under the tree. And now they have an extra classroom, they have ablution blocks, the teachers have a new housing area, and we also provided them with books and school uniforms and teaching materials. And we're also looking at developing their garden and providing them with drinking water. Then we also work with, or we run a dental clinic that provides dental and medical care to the people in the area. And we work very closely with our local dispensary, often purchasing medicines when they don't have any. And we are fortunate to have a footprint vehicle. So our footprint vehicle acts as an ambulance in any emergency. They do the deliveries for our Feeding Young Minds programs, where we feed 8 schools within the region's school lunches. And it also takes our lovely scholars to and from school, end and beginning of term. And there we go. So moving on to culture, we try and do as much as possible to celebrate the rich Samburu culture out here. One of the things we do is we encourage our staff to share their stories with the guests and also to wear traditional dress. Expanding our offering of culture right here at the lodge, we recently opened the Rodeo Man Museum of Samburu Culture. Rodeo Man dedicated most of her life to researching and preserving the Samburu culture. The collection is of various items. It includes necklaces. Hold that up. I do have permission to handle these. But it includes necklaces, traditional copper earrings, cowhide bags, and many items that you don't find the people use anymore. The collection used to be housed at the National Museum in Nairobi, and we were happy to be a part of bringing all of this back home. One of the cultural activities that we offer our guests is a visit over to the local community, offered by and guided by one of our Samburu spotters. We make a donation on behalf of any guest that visits. I've worked in many places, and to me, it is probably one of the most authentic village experiences. There is nothing to buy. We have a dedicated marketplace set up over at our airstrip. It's truly a learning experience, and many of my guests have basically given feedback that this was the most transformative event or experience in their safari. And in 2003, we actually recorded that 800 of our guests visited the local communities. Then another activity we offer, which is from the picture we can see, is a traditional cultural ceremony that the guests can visit. It is a truly magical experience, so an explosion of singing and dancing, and is made even more special by the knowledge that these women are the ones that are the hardest working in the family, and they don't often get a chance to sing and celebrate the way the men do, because they have to build the houses, take care of the children and the goats, to name but a few things. And then we also suggested the introduction of traditional attire as school uniforms, moving away from the Western uniform. It helped to demystify the formal education and celebrate the Samburu culture, of course. Then under commerce, we are lucky to have a substantial flow of bed nights that enables the Conservancy to fund impactful projects through the conservation fees that are paid by our guests. These funds go not only towards the management of the Conservancy, but also the protection of the wildlife, building roads, and general development. Our 4C Center, which houses our gym, spa, shop, and learning hub, which also includes a section dedicated to the community leaders that were part of the original agreement for the land, was built last year. And we also built an extra family room, increasing our bed nights and creating more employment. This is just an overview of the outcomes of our impact of 2023. Of course, I'd like to point out the 37 students that were part of our scholarship program, 1,347 meals that were provided to the 8 schools in the area, and then the conservation fees totaling $387,565 that was given to the community. And that is it. Do I have a couple of seconds?
You always have a couple of seconds.
Okay, so just in closing, I'd like to share a Samburu proverb with everyone, and excuse my butchering, but Miboe Nkare Emesho Nkwe, which means water is unstoppable as long as it has started flowing. And that's how I feel about our impact. We've started. We're here, and we're just gonna stop. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alsan, for your incredible presentation. I've been very lucky to be to Sasab many times, and it is a very magical place. I have to admit, it's lovely to see the buns or the smiles. And then last time we came to Sasab is the first time in all the years I've actually seen it green. So it's been very impactful to see the change that the ecosystem can undergo by just simple interventions that can be replicable, that doesn't take a lot of money or skills or expertise. So it's also great for the community. Before we move on, I've got a question for you that would be lovely to hear. Like you were saying in the proverb, it's like once the water starts flowing, you know, it will continue. So looking at maybe your community initiatives, how did you engage with the communities to decide which initiatives to support? Which one should we select?
That's always a tough one to look at. Of course, we first we engage with the community to see where the need is most. For example, our projects that we deal with drilling the boreholes. We deal with other partners that also do their research, like the Samburu project that will do the surveys of where it is possible to do that. And it's basically it's all the team. We all sit down, we decide community, we talk to the staff, we've got our footprint trust. So yeah, collectively.
Brilliant. I think collectively is a key word. I think it's not for us to decide which projects to do, but it's to do it collectively with the communities to ensure that we're addressing the real needs. So incredible. I'm always happy to come and see what you're doing. And it's really nice to see how honestly, how it has evolved. When we came first in 2015, it was, it's just gone through so many hoops and bounds. It's been an incredible journey. So thank you so much. I can't wait to hear what's happening next, and there's always a surprise. Next, we are going now from Samburu, so the far north of Kenya. We are going all the way to the south. We are going to come to the Masai Mara. And it'd be great to hear from you, Eric, also, it's like being part of a wider conservation area, how as an individual tourism operator, how you're really driving the conservation, because I think that's a very unique way that SANAS is supporting things. So thank you so much, Eric. Hope you're all okay. Brilliant.
Hello, everyone. It was quite interesting to hear what all our partners all over the world are presenting, and it's quite it is quite breathtaking to hear that as we are doing what we are doing and what we can do in the Mara, everyone else is probably definitely doing what they can do as well to make the world a better place. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I will start by introducing myself. I'm Eric, and I'm the camp manager at the Safari collection, which is based in Masai Mara and at SANAS camp. I will start by introduction of the camp itself. Opened in 2004 in the most secluded area, the southern part of Masai Mara. We call it the underused zone, with the dream of making the Mara a better place. And this dream is definitely handing over the Mara to the next generation in a better way than we found it as this generation. The Mara is historic. The Mara has a history of over-tourism, which we are working hard and tirelessly to make sure that we don't continue facing this this challenge that we have. Historically, where we are situated as a camp, this area is known for as a hideout. Before the camp came through, it was known for as a hideout for a lot of poachers who would come through in the Mara and do what they do best. And with this in mind, it was because of less human activity, and the Mara has been situated in an area where I would say unknowingly has actually reduced this problem that we have that we had in this area. Moving on to the next our next slide. Salas Camp, like I said before, it is right at the border of Tanzania, and we face a few challenges that we have. Since the camp is situated in a reserve, conservation was part of the first challenge we had, and we have partnered with a lot of partners, including the Narok County government, in monitoring the pangolin, which is one of the most trafficked animal in the world. And we also have partners with 51 Degrees and the Narok County government as well to reduce the impact of rhino poaching within the Mara itself. And the second challenge we face as a camp is where we're situated, identifying our community, since we are situated in the Masai Mara National Reserve. So it has been a challenge for us to actually identify which community we have. But with that being said, we have actually managed to find ways on how we can actually sort that one out. Culture, with a lot of generations coming through, we realize that tradition versus sorry about that. We realize that tradition versus contemporary Kenya is a challenge that we are facing as we go by. And this is on commerce, over tourism. Over tourism has been a challenge in the Mara for the longest of period. You realize that, especially in high season, we have a lot of vehicles surrounding one sighting. If you go to the river crossings, you realize that we have a lot of vehicles blocking some of the traditional wildebeest migration routes. The resolutions that we have come up with as a camp and as a company, firstly, on conservation, we have then partnered with the Pangolin project, and we have contributed, just last year alone, we have contributed an amount up to $6,000 as a company, as a camp. And then the use of vehicle as well. This vehicle was donated, and it was actually used solely for this purpose. We have actually hosted the whole project, and the people who were working on this project in the Mara. We have also partnered with the Narok County government, as well as 51 Degrees, our founding partners, to come up with a project that is very close to my heart, which is we built an ops room and brought in the Earth Ranger program. The Earth Ranger program is a conservation tool that is being used all over Africa and I would say all over the world. In most of these countries, this project is being used mostly for anti-poaching. However, in the Mara, we have decided to take a step further and make this as a tool of more human behavior management. Of all the problems that I've mentioned before, with this in mind, we aim to use this this wonderful tool to monitor all collared wild animals in the Mara, and we also can use it to monitor livestock encroachment in the Masai Mara National Park. Traditionally, the Maasai people that live surrounding in the surrounding communities, they are pastoralists, and their wealth is figured by how many animals, livestock you have in your pen. And with this, because of so many cows that we have outside the reserve, a lot of grazing area it can be easily depleted, especially with when we don't have a lot of rain in the Mara. So they end up encroaching into the reserve. And with this, when it's fully implemented, you can easily track and manage the encroachment of these animals into the reserve. Anti-poaching is also, we have already started the first phase. I would rather say the second phase. We have already tagged and put rhino trackers on. I'm holding one tracker that we actually put in the one. We have done about 35 rhinos already. All this after we have put the trackers and the tags. You will be able to then collect the data from these useful trackers in real time. You will also be able to monitor from the control room the behavior of these animals and why we are facing this challenge of poaching at the moment. And monitor all vehicles. This is very close to my heart because you get to see that on one sighting, you have 30 to 40 vehicles, if not more. And someone who's sitting in the control room, if every vehicle then gets a tracker when they get into the reserve, you will then realize that someone who's sitting in the control room, in the ops room, can easily see that we have a problem in this area, and they can easily deploy a ranger from wherever they will be to quickly mitigate and control the problem before it gets worse. So this will actually work very well in controlling the sightings we have and making them more organized, I must say. Then it also helps the Narok County government. Historically, you can see that and statistically, a substantial amount of money is lost on revenue collection every year in the Mara. And with this implementation, we will be able then to close all those gaps and improve revenue collection for the reserve management team. With that in mind, we also have some projects that we do in camp, like replanting trees in both in camp and all over. And this is something very interesting because you realize that even the staff, when they go back home, they've actually quickly caught up on the fact that we are working for a company that really loves nature. You realize that on each and every one-on-ones that I have with my staff as a manager, you ask them what they have done in their personal life to make sure that they leave the world a better place and hand it over to the next generation a better place. You realize that most of the staff members will actually tell you that I've planted trees, and this is very heartwarming in the sense that you realize that as a company you are actually winning slowly as you change the world. Then as part of the challenges, we jump over to community. We as a company, we employ quite a substantial amount of people. As a company as a whole, we have about 450 employees. And as my colleague Alzan said earlier on, most of us as Africans, we come from big families. You realize that as one person, you're taking care of 10 to 15 people. And with this in mind, you can calculate the amount of people that are being helped through employment. My colleague Alzan from Sasab has just touched on the girls that we have in our kitchens. These are beneficiaries of the chef's program that we have, and since they have excelled and done very well in their training programs, we have actually taken it upon ourselves as a company to then show the people out there in the communities to show that we are a company that cares, and we can actually train and help with jobs whenever we can. And with that being said as well, we also have a guide program that we have as a company. We actually do our best to make sure that we try and equip these the people that we have, our employees, those who want to grow their careers into being guides. We also look into that as well. In the communities, we support the dental clinics around. Last year alone, we had 406 patients that from the surrounding communities that we have actually that have been helped in these dental institutions. Then we also help by supporting the Rhino Ranger team through uniforms, and you realize that when they come through, sometimes they come through for their cars repairs in camp and a fuel as well. And just last year alone, we raised some 11,500 for the equipment and uniforms as well. Conservation education is something that we take seriously as a company. We also make sure that we give a lot of education to not only to the staff members we have, but to the community through the kids that would have actually come through. We have a program called the Safari Kids that actually managed to bring through children from the neighboring communities who traditionally they would see these animals as their enemy, because when they leave the reserve, they go and attack their livestock. And traditionally, these have been an enemy. However, with this, you realize that the kids see these animals from a different angle, and they start seeing the benefit of having these animals and seeing the benefits of tourism. Moving on to culture, as a company and as a camp, we celebrate the Kenyan culture through local artists in residence. We have our own called Adrian Numa, who is a Kenyan who comes through in all of the camps that we have. And sometimes he showcases his talent. We also have have facilitated the sale of his paintings to the guests that we have. Celebrating the Maasai culture through supporting local enterprise. The Maasai culture, you realize that they are very big on their bidding. They're very big on bids, and in our shop we actually sell this merchandise on behalf of these local vendors that we have, and that's how we actually support the local culture. Moving on to commerce. Last year alone, that is 2023, we collected an amount adding up to $447,000 United States dollars, and this was through conservation, through the park fees, and this is used to support the reserve management and the community development at large. We also have a bed night fee to support the Mara Rhino Ranger team. So what happens is a certain amount of money is taken from the bed night that our guest pays per night, and that is channeled through to the Rhino program that we have in the Mara. The Earth Ranger Tories, the Earth Ranger also plays a very important role in this. Historically, you actually can realize that the Mara Reserve lost a lot of revenue through not having substantial or very good channels of collecting their revenue. So with the Earth Ranger coming into play, you realize that they will have a better channel, and they will actually have collect a more substantial amount of money, and this will help us deal with the over-tourism that we also have in the Mara. In conclusion, the outcomes. To support the management in communities, like I said earlier on, we have collected about $447,000. This will help go a long way in helping the communities and the management at large. And the dental clinics that we have, we have managed to help about 406 patients last year alone, and quite excited about this because it's something that you realize that a lot of people within the neighboring communities wouldn't have actually have this kind of treatment. Then on to the pangolin project, we donated something like we donated about $6,000 and the use of a conservation vehicle. Then 11,500 went to the Mara Rangers on uniforms and equipment. We also have 54 students taken on educational safaris, which helps them see these animals, how they benefit from these animals rather than having them as their enemies. In conclusion, that is a picture of which was taken when we were busy with rhino notching and tagging these animals, and which was very successful. We are hoping that the second phase of notching and tagging will take place in March next year. Thank you very much for listening. And for those who have questions, please feel free to bring them through. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric, for your presentation. I know Salah's camp is, quite different to some of the other members, because I think also for us, we work with members not just that own or manage influence areas, but the influence is really key. So Salah's, in addition with Ollie, Tanya, and Mikey, have worked very hard to see on how Salah's can play a role to manage over-tourism. And Earth Ranger has been a great way that they have brought to the Masai Mara Nature Reserve in order to help support that. We have a few questions. We are running slightly behind, so I will skip those for now, but we have shared your contact details, Eric, so everybody will reach out to you. We've also shared Ollie's contact details to make sure we can continue the discussion offline as well. But please, if you have any questions or need any clarification, please feel free to share this in the chat, and we will make sure that we are forwarding those. So thank you once again, Eric. Now that we are leaving the Masai Mara and we are going slightly up north again, we are going back to Laikipia, where Susan is going to share a lot more about what Sirikoi is doing. Susan, I hope you're okay. Perfect. I can see your screen. If you want to do it full screen, then we can see it all. That'd be amazing. Otherwise, I can definitely see your slide. So that will be perfect.
Sure. Just a minute.
It's probably where the 3 dots are at the top. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Yep.
There's normally a small symbol for expansion.
Okay, let me just do it remotely.
Don't worry, otherwise I can see the slide, which is all that matters.
Can you see all of them?
No, I can just see the first one, so that's fine. So why don't we leave it at that, and you walk us through all of your incredible work.
Okay, thank you so much for your wonderful introduction, and I hope you can hear me all. So I'm gonna be presenting about Sirikoi, Sirikoi Lodge. We are an 18-bed capacity, which equates to only 9 rooms. We are located in central Kenya, that is in Meru County, within the Lewa Wildlife Conservancy. And we are about 200 kilometers from Nairobi, from Kenyan capitals, which is Nairobi. And that also equates to only 45 minutes by air. We cannot talk about Sirikoi without mentioning about Sue and the late Willie Roberts, who are the founders of Sirikoi Lodge. Willie was one of the greatest and most instrumental ambassadors for wildlife conservation in Kenya, having set up the first wildlife conservancy in the Mara. And the family has been in the safari business for over 50 years. And Sirikoi is one of their third legacy that they built. And this has also evolved from their lifelong commitment to wildlife conservation combined with community development. So how Sirikoi started is that on hearing that about a parcel of land right adjacent to Lewa Conservancy was being put out for farming. He gathered a few of his friends, and he and the partners purchased the land to secure it for wildlife protection and incorporate it within the Lewa Wildlife Conservancy, saving it from what would have been termed as an ecological disaster. So this once, as you can see on the first photo, this was the second photo of the exclusion zone. It was once a maize field, and with time and rewilding project, this has also been turned into what you can see, where you can see the Sirikoi stream as well. That's what has been transformed into a beautiful exclusion zone, which is about 7,500 acres of land. And that is shared between 4 owners, with Sirikoi controlling about 3,000 all to ourselves, which is really good. On to the next slide. Okay. So as earlier mentioned, we are surrounded and directly support one of the most iconic wildlife conservancies in Kenya, that is Lewa Wildlife Conservancy, which gained its UNESCO World Heritage Site status in 2013. And all our guests get a unique opportunity to visit Lewa Wildlife Conservancy and experience firsthand conservation, and also see how conservation works with the amazing anti-poaching unit, and once they go behind the scenes at Lewa. So we as Sirikoi combine eco-luxury, Sirikoi combines eco-friendly luxury with a deep commitment to environmental and cultural, and we are making our destination unique, and all our, like most of the conscious travelers are always inclined to come to Sirikoi because we have a deep commitment to environmental sustainability. As part of our commitment to create a more conducive environment and for people and for the planet, and also the desire to join people who are like-minded. We joined the long run last year in March, and it has been a wonderful journey, I can say. So some of the challenges that we have been facing and that we wanted to solve when we stepped into sustainability. First of all, we wanted, to create land for natural land for wildlife habitat that they can thrive. Since, as I earlier mentioned, the land that was there was meant for agricultural activities, and being able to do a land exchange program, this meant that, we had more land for wildlife. We also wanted to solve the issue of land for community. What happened is that Sirikoi or Lewa is joined by the Borana and the Garendare ecosystem. So, and in between there's a community that is called Manyangalo community, and the community at some point, with now the four partners coming together, they didn't have land. And what happened is that once the land was bought, 300 acres of land was set aside for the Manyangalo community so that they can have somewhere to settle. So within the community, there was also the issue of unemployment, and we wanted also to create jobs and equal opportunities for all. And also when it comes to culture, we wanted also to create an authentic experience for our guests, whereby they could experience authentic culture, and also, meaning, and also that the community that owns that culture benefit in a win-win situation. So we also wanted to improve the education sector, which has been a challenge as well. So, and also by creating infrastructural development in schools. Another challenge that we wanted to solve as well was the problem of waste management. What happens is that as much as you can say that we are sustainable, if your wastes or what you produce from the lodge is not managed in a sustainable way, then there is a problem. So, and we also wanted to create a nutrition program and a healthy program within the community, so that they also reap the benefits as well. Another one, we wanted to take care of the marginalized community, that is mostly the elderly and the disabled. And as I earlier mentioned, we wanted to create a balance between tourism, conservation, local livelihoods, and while preserving the local culture as well. There was also a need for local communities, including our own staff, our guests, to understand the importance of biodiversity, sustainability, and why we are working so hard to also preserve the culture. One of the presenter, I think a lady from Sri Lanka, mentioned that you cannot compromise guest luxury when it comes to sustainability, and you have to strike a balance between the two. So our accommodation, it's, despite that it's luxurious, I can affirm that we do not, compromise the luxury of our guests with sustainability, and we try to strike a balance between the two. And all our guests get to experience intimate safaris and within the Lewa Wildlife Conservancy, and we are on a commitment to conserve the 3,000 acres of natural habitat that we have secured just next to Lewa Conservancy. We encourage all our guests to support the Lewa Wildlife Conservancy by engaging in a massive conservation activities, and through going behind the scenes, they are able to see how first-hand conservation experience works in a remote part of Africa. As part of the resolution for solving our problems, we have come up with a number of strategies, and one of them is the environmental impact at our facility, and we have found ways to sustainably manage our waste. As you can see on the first photo where we have the waste management, we are able to create we are able to make sure that all our bottles that are produced within the lodge, which comprises one of the biggest percentage of our waste, do not end up into the landfill, where we convert them into beautiful flower vases and glass. We also compose all our food waste into manure for our beautiful organic garden that is within the lodge. And we also try to do a lot of water harvesting during the rainy season, so that when it comes to the dry season, we have a lot of water to water our lawns, and also make sure that our lawns stay green. We have a beautiful organic garden, which is 1 acre, which is organically farmed, no chemicals, no fertilizers. We get a bigger percentage of our vegetables and herbs from the garden, quite a good percentage of the berries, and 100% of our flour for the arrangement also come from our garden. So we are able to get that within the beautiful garden. And all our guests get to experience the back of house tours within the lodge. So what happens is that by visiting the garden and taking a back of house tour is one of the biggest highlight for our guests, and seeing firsthand how we can do organic farming, regenerative farming, by them getting to visit the solar bank, observing our sustainability and conservation effort, as well as the furniture making in our workshop. And also they get a unique opportunity to see our kitchen in full swing, where their food is prepared. And it's really very rewarding for all our guests. And going behind the scenes has brought a new dimension of approach for the luxury within the world at Sirikoi Lodge. And our back of house tours are mostly tailored to showcase to our guests that it is possible to achieve conservation and sustainability in a remote part of Africa or in a remote part of Kenya, and with all the challenges that present as well. So another project that we have gone into is the Seed Ball. So through partnering with an organization called the Seed Ball Kenya, we are able to give our guests some seed balls, and they can go on safari or on walking safaris, and they can just throw and grow. And what that means is that by using a catapult, they can throw the seed balls, and even if it takes about 2 to 3 months for the rains, when it rains, the seed balls will still germinate. Another thing is that the lodge is operated off the grid, so we are 100% on renewable energy, which is solar, and as you can see, some of the solar panels on the roof of the lodge. So job creation is one of the things that we sought to to come in and create opportunities for people. So up to 75% of our staff are all from the local community, that's being the immediate community and communities within a 50-kilometer radius. For only an 18-bed or 18-bed capacity lodge, we have about 84 staff, and 74 of those are all on site. Also on the education program, we wanted to create a program that so needy and bright kids go to school through scholarship and bursary. And what initially started as a project for just our staff has over time expanded, so that we are able also to help other people who are not necessarily our staff as well. And also supporting the organic garden in schools, so that also schools get to get a healthy and nutritious diet every day. So we have tried to help set up organic gardens in school. So far, we have about 2 organic gardens, and there's one that we help from, from advice point of view. And this has seen, a tremendous improvement, especially whereby in an area where some kids go to school, especially without food, because they have to walk long distances home to either take their meals. One of the photos that you can see on the presentation is in about 3 months ago, we built the Impact Center, where we showcase to our guests, what it takes to achieve conservation, some of our projects that we are doing on site as well, when it comes to sustainability. And the Impact Center has also come in handy when it comes to, staff training, because it's one of the places that we use for our staff training as well. And this has seen a number of, so many guests come and appreciate the work that we are doing on site as well. Community support through the feeding programs. We also come in as an emergency aid for our community, which is right next to us. And it's about 5 to 10 minutes from where we operate. And this has really helped community appreciate and benefit from our lodge being in existence. We also have a carbon project. We have partnered with an organization called Natural States. And the Natural State, what it does is that it's helping to build the foundation of the nature-based solution sectors and in the tropics mostly, by developing a technology and a system whereby they measure by us creating exclusion zone, whereby we fence a part of land for trees to thrive. So Natural State will come in to measure the carbon that is below and above ground. And that also helps through that partnership, the information that is gotten from the project will be able to see whether the exclusion zone are really helping, or is it beneficial to create an exclusion zone as well. And in future, the vision for the carbon project is so that people can also be able to reap the benefits of creating exclusion zones, and also through the offsetting projects as well. On some of the outcomes, as I mentioned, we support Lewa Wildlife Conservancies a lot through all our guests visiting the Conservancy, and we can see about 450,000 USD is given by Sirikoi annually to Lewa Wildlife Conservancy, whereby they help take care of the endangered species, and also fund some of their community and health programs as well. 12% of our profits are also invested in community projects like education, health, feeding, and emergency response. And we have about 12 students who have gone through high school. And we also, through the community project, we have reached about 7,000 people directly and indirectly. And also we have 5% of our profit being invested in the culture of the neighboring community. So these are some of the outcomes. The Elevate program, this is just a program that we created so that we can help the youth from our community get, employable skills. They come for a 3-month training, and then through the experience that they gain, they can become employable in other areas. There is also the youth empowerment program, whereby we just come in and help them through the football clubs. There's also the Kindle project that we have recently introduced in schools as well. And this aims to revolutionize the learning experience for students in schools. And how we celebrate culture, we have the postcard stories. So unlike some of the areas that most people operate and only one culture is there. So for us, we have about 16 cultures in our community because it's mostly cosmopolitan. And we decided to celebrate culture through cultural inclusiveness and diversity. So we included all the 16 cultures through the postcard stories, and we are telling something little about each of the culture and each of the community that we work with. I mentioned about the education program as well as the Impact Center. So how does tomorrow or what is our future plans look like. So last year, towards the end of last year, we decided to come up with the Sirikoi Trust, which will ground all these projects that I've mentioned. And also, it will also help us increase our scope and also our reach within the community, and we'll be able to offer programs like trade skills training for the community members, like microfinancing, bookkeeping, IT skills, the youth enterprise program as well, and support startup programs within the community. The beauty of the trust is that it will always have some money, because 2% of the revenue from the business, that is from the lodge, will be donated to the trust. And that means at any given time, should there be a project that needs to be supported, we will always have the funds for that. Currently, the beauty of our project is that, or our program and our operations, is that we do not, when it comes to impact, community and conservation impact, we do not really run on a specific budget. And so what happens is that we operate mostly from our profits, and we are always able to fund most of these impact projects whenever we are called upon to. So that's how our future.
Thank you so much, Susan. No, to be honest, sorry, we are coming to an end, but I'm also thought it's a really important point that you made at the end of your presentations. Because I think, for so many of us, sustainability or the projects that we are doing always happen just as and when we have time or we have money. And I think, the way that it has been going, also for Sirikoi, is really to try and make sure, and how it is integrated in all of it, and the dedication to submit 2% of your profits to the work that you're doing within the 4Cs is incredible. Because I think also the strategic planning that we kickstarted 12 months ago, it's really great to see how this is now taking shape and helping you assess where is it that we want to go, and how our day-to-day activities are aligned with that. So I think that's been really great to see, and I'm so glad things are moving in the direction that you 12 months ago were only dreaming about. We are slightly running over, so I have to hand over to Rich. But before we go, I just thought you mentioned exclusion zones. Maybe just clarify for people, what is an exclusion zone, so that they understand why are we doing that?
Okay, so what we mean by an exclusion zone is that over time, Lewa Wildlife Conservancy, where we are located, is that the land has really been destroyed by elephants, and due to them knocking down trees, and so it has been turned into mostly like a savanna. So we are now trying to rehabilitate the land, and through creation of exclusion zone is basically setting aside land and put an electric fence, so that the elephants do not cross through the electric fence, and then you go in and plant trees. And with time, the electric fence will allow the trees to thrive, and the exclusion zone can always be expanded with time. So just something to clarify is that by creating an exclusion zone or doing a fence, it does not stop all the other animals to come in. It's just the elephants, because they are destructive. And once you rehabilitate this land, it means you can always expand and leave that area and go create another exclusion zone somewhere else. Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Susan. I just thought it'd be good to elaborate to make sure we all know what it is. But I'm looking forward to coming back to Sirikoi. I still very much remember the, 4 hours we spent at the back of house, and their garden is absolutely incredible, as is, the whole back of house, to be honest. I am very keen on those things. So it's been really a pleasure. And thank you so much, Susan, for sharing everything that Sirikoi is doing today. So thanks so much once again. Next, we're going to just go south a little bit within Laikipia. On the other side of the Lewa Conservancy is Borana, and within Borana there is Arajiju. And Rich is very kindly telling us a little bit more about his work within the 4Cs and how are they working to support Borana and beyond. Thank you, Rich, so much.
Hi, Anne, how are you?
Very good.
Good. Can you see me and my presentation?
It's still loading, but yeah, I can see it. Perfect.
Can you see it? Okay.
Yes, I can. Thank you so much.
Yeah, nice to see everyone and hear from everyone. So what I thought I'd just do is I'll just go through Arajiju. I know we're a relatively new member to the long run, but it will all kind of make sense as I kind of go through it right now. Just a table of contents. We'll just go through a little bit of a background as to who Arajiju is. I'll briefly touch on the house, our conservation approach, and then tackling some of the 4 Cs within the long run, some of the challenges and solutions that we've had. Next, yeah. Okay, so just so everyone understands where Arajiju is, so Arajiju is situated in what we call the Lewa Barana landscape. It's a 90,000 acre private conservancy up in northern Kenya. And initially started off as 2 separate conservancies. One was Barana and Lewa. And what happened was Barana and Lewa dropped their fences to create one contiguous landscape for the protection of black and white rhino. How did Arajiju become into existence? So the owner is a private individual who is half Nigerian, half English. His wife is from Norway. And they had been coming to Kenya for about 15, 20 years prior to investing in Barana. And they wanted to find a place that reminded them of his childhood, where he grew up in Africa. And he wanted to ensure that his family, who are based in London, felt connected to their heritage and also were there to embrace in protecting this landscape. So Arajiju has a pretty unique conservation model, and I think I'll touch on it shortly. But one of the things that was very important in the design of Arajiju was that the house was carved into the hillside and almost disappears into the landscape. And they camped at the actual site, or camped in this area, for about 2 years before deciding where to build. And one of the reasons for that was they wanted to make sure that there was no light pollution. They wanted to figure out where the prevailing winds came from. And also just wanted to really make sure that the house was as unobtrusive as possible to the landscape. So with that being said, the grass roof aesthetic to blend the house was a very focal point within the design. And one of the kind of sustainability elements to the house, if you could call it that, is that the house is very thermodynamic in regulating its own temperature. So what that meant was that there was no need for any aircon units or heating appliances to kind of keep the house heated or cooled down through different times of the year. Let me just touch on the house. There we go. So just a little bit about the house. Not sure if anyone knows, but I'll just briefly touch on it. So the house is a 5-bedroom house. It's a private, exclusive use home that, when the family are not there, that they lease out to guests that want to come and stay in the conservancy. But just a few features on the house. So it's got a cinema, a home office. It's got a boot room. One thing that Arajiju prides itself on is being a wellness retreat, and that includes having a gym. We've got a spa, a hammam, which is like a Turkish bath, and then a yoga shala. In saying that, we've got 2 in-house therapists that are from the area, that are trained locally as well as internationally, and all of our products are made on site from our vegetable garden or from local botanicals in the area. One thing that we also try and emphasize is that there is an array of activities to do at Arajiju. So choosing from a tennis court, squash court, we've got a football and bulls pitch. But more importantly, we try and pride ourselves on a slightly slower paced safari, which focuses on kind of wellness, healthy eating, and experiencing Barana Conservancy through either game drives, walking, e-biking, or horse riding. Just touching on a few sustainability elements on the house. So in saying that, we do have a solar system that powers the house. So We've got one of the first of its kind in East Africa, which is a 960 kilowatt hour battery solarized container. So it was the first of its kind in Kenya, which equates to about a megawatt of storage of power. And then we've got about 250 kilowatt hour peak of solar that charges up the batteries. So what that's allowed us to do is to have all the kind of nice luxuries of Arajiju, but enable us to use renewable energy to power all those nice things throughout the home. We also catch a huge amount of rainwater. So we've got 30 staff that live on site. All 30 of them have got accommodation on site, and that's primarily where we catch most of our rainwater from. So we've got about 480 solar panels, which has a very intricate French drain system, which runs through a series of pipes that end up in about 450,000 liters of rainwater storage. And that rainwater storage is generally used for vegetable gardens, irrigation on some of our landscaped areas, as well as washing vehicles and that type of thing. In terms of wastewater, we've got quite an extensive wastewater treatment plant. So it's called an MBBR plant, which stands for Moving Biobed Reactor Plant. And what that allows us to do is recycle all of our black and gray water. So all of the water that comes from our toilets, our showers, our kitchen, everything runs through a filtration plant. And by the time it comes through this filtration plant, it's extremely clean and can be reused for washing outside areas. It can be used for landscaping, washing vehicles. And what that's allowed us to do is reduce our water consumption as a whole by nearly 50%. Then there's a few other things that we do, which is all part of our recycling practices. The recycling practices involve collecting all of our soft plastics, hard plastics, all of our tins, glass. And what we do is collectively with Barana, we send them down to the recycling center on Barana. And I'm sure Eloise and some of the other Barana long run members will probably touch on this, but a lot of our glass bottles, from wine bottles to gin bottles, are recycled in building materials. We've got a glass crushing machine. So kind of everything is sent through to the headquarter where it's collectively managed and sorted out. I'll just touch on a few things on the approach. So a few people don't maybe know this about Barana, but Barana has a very interesting conservation model in that Arajiju is one of 5 other stakeholders inside the conservancy. And it's essentially run by 5 families, and all 5 families have pledged an underwriting to cover all the core conservation costs for Barana. So these financial underwritings get paid every year, and this covers everything from wildlife conservation through to kind of community initiatives. Anything that's generated above and beyond that is then plowed back into the conservancy. In saying that, Arajiju, in theory, is technically a non-for-profit. So every cent that's generated through guests coming and staying in the house goes into covering Arajiju's costs, as well as investing in the staff. And then from that, we invest everything else into other conservation projects. So, for example, if we would have, during the droughts that we had a couple of months ago, some of the communities really struggled to get access to water. So we needed funding to put in a pipeline to get some of the communities water. Those additional funds are plowed into those types of projects. A school that needs to be built, those funds are plowed back into that. So it's a very unique conservation model where I think looking through COVID times when there was no tourism, Barana could stand on its own 2 feet and there was still enough revenue to keep boots on the ground for the rangers. There was still community projects running and carrying on. We could cover core conservation running costs with all the families' underwritings. Let's move on to the next one. So maybe let's just touch on some of the 4Cs and some of our challenges that we have, and in the conservation area, this is kind of a few of our immediate challenges that we're facing. So obviously endangered wildlife species and protection throughout Borana. So Borana has one of the largest contiguous landscapes for black and white rhino in East Africa. So we're currently sitting on about 255 rhino. It's almost a 50-50 split. So challenges around how do we keep protecting the species. But on top of that, reticulated giraffe are critically endangered, grevy's zebras. We've got home to about 10% of the world's population on Borana. Some of the other challenges include security for wildlife and communities, transparency with tourism revenue, and then obviously sustainable practices in remote locations. So some of the solutions, Arajiju plays a part in a bigger picture of like-minded stakeholders that are involved in Borana. So I think Arajuju's annual underwriting combined with our conservation partners, this goes directly back into the conservancy. The other thing is ensuring long-term sustainable conservation models are set up around Laikipia. And these models include helping acquire land in certain places to ensure that they're not further developed or turned into farming lands, making sure that there's education set up for a lot of the communities outside, in teaching them why it's important to preserve and protect these areas. And a lot of the wildlife in Borana also does move outside of the conservancy. So these migration corridors as such need to be protected. Just in terms of I know Sirikoi just touched on it now, but one of the big problems that we have in Laikipia is we're losing a lot of vegetation to elephants. So Laikipia is one of the few places in Africa where wildlife numbers are increasing. So elephants in particular are really destructive towards trees, and we're losing a lot of trees. So just from last year, May, up to now, Arajiju just planted about 5,000 indigenous trees around the Arajiju area of the conservancy, and those all include your African wild olive, your Carissa edulis, Acacia xanthifolia, as well as a few other indigenous species. Another thing that I think that Borana as a whole that falls under Arajiju is that Borana has a transparent model where we showcase how every single dollar that's generated from tourism and donations is spent throughout the conservancy, which I think is very important in today's day and age. And then obviously there's all the sustainable practices that we do as a property around our black and grey water, recycling of rainwater, and so on and so forth. Community. So what are some of our challenges with community? So obviously there's the kind of obvious ones: employment and job creation, natural resources such as lack of water and food access, human-wildlife conflict, education, healthcare, overgrazed and degraded community areas. So a few solutions that we've addressed. So Arajiju employs about 89% of its staff from neighboring communities from Borana, and half of them are women. A few things that we've done just from Arajiju is we set up a permaculture project in the Arajiju community. So about 80% of the school kids don't have access to fresh produce in their meals daily. So we set up a permaculture project where we taught them how to farm so that the kids can get fresh produce in their lunches every day. Tackling some of the kind of human-wildlife conflict issues, so working with a lot of local conservation organizations such as Lion Landscapes, where we'd often have lions going into community areas, eating their cattle. We put funding into getting a collar on one lion in particular, and that way we could have give the community a heads up when there was a bad lion coming over to try and eat their cows. Yeah, we funded a school, so that's just a few of the kind of internal projects that we've done. Obviously, Arajiju as a whole contributes towards a bigger picture, within Barana, which I think Eloise will touch on some of our overall collaborative projects that we work on. The other thing that we do is we do have a livestock to market program. So a lot of the areas outside of the community, outside of the conservancy areas, don't have access to good, clean grass. So we've got a livestock to market program where we bring on some of their cattle onto the conservancy. We help fatten them up and then help them sell them for more money. In terms of culture, just quickly on culture. So I think one of the challenges is preserving local culture and traditions in an authentic manner. So one of the things that we've done is we try and encourage guests to go and visit our local Aradigi community, and we try and encourage them not to interfere or push any Western ideology onto them. Through those visits, there's a small beadwork center that we support. So obviously we buy some of their beadwork, which goes directly to the ladies. And then on top of supporting some of the local traditions and cultures, we've incorporated a few of the local traditions in a lot of Aradigi healing techniques, should I say, that we use in our spa. So 2 of our therapists work closely with Samburu healers and Maasai, and they've incorporated a lot of our products that we make all in-house. They use those from Samburu healing techniques. So Frida, who's one of our therapists, she went to Thailand to learn Thai reflexology. And in the Samburu culture, their culture is very similar to Thai reflexology and Thai massage. So she's incorporated a lot of traditional Thai or Samburu healing techniques in her practices. Commerce, quickly. So challenges, I believe long-term, we need to come up with bulletproof conservation models that are financially viable. Other challenges include high-end quality supply chain for different dietary requirements, high-end training schools for the hospitality industry, from food and beverage to wellness, I think is lacking. What about some of our solutions? So Barana, I think Barana's model of having like-minded conservation partners who front underwriting costs to cover core operating costs is a bulletproof model, and I think more people need to look at replicating similar things like this. High-end, quality supply chain. We definitely seeing a lot of dietary requirements and challenges within the supply chain in Kenya. For example, vegan products are very hard to come by in Kenya. And we pushed a particular supplier for a long time, and they started developing their own vegan butter, for example. And I think if more of us stand together and try and push, we can avoid imports on certain products and things like that. And then obviously training for us is a very big one. We feel there's a major lacking training facility in Kenya that's focusing on food training, beverage training, and wellness. So what we've done is we bring in a lot of international and external trainers from South Africa, the UK, America, all over the world to come and train the staff on an international level. And then the other thing that we do is we actually send a lot of our staff away. One example would be as Frida, our therapist, we sent her to Thailand for 4 months to go and learn Thai reflexology and Thai massage, giving our staff the experience and training overseas in a kind of international market, I think is very important. I do think there's a bigger element behind trying to do things more local if possible.
Yeah.
So just a few things.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I know pressed for time. Sorry.
There's always more to tell. There's always more to share, and that's a beautiful thing. I think it's incredible. But I loved how you were also talking about the staff exchange and making sure training capacity building is really central. And I also, the great thing is within Kenya, We've got quite a few members because the long run started here in Kenya. So the amount of exchange actually that's taking place regionally is really being inspiring. It's definitely something we are very keen to expand, but also members have come from different regions, whether that's from Chile come to South Africa, or Indonesia has gone to the Maldives, or other ways. And I think in general, staff exchange for people to be exposed to different cultures, to different ways of doing business, can really help them to accelerate their work and bring new ideas back to our individual properties. So thank you so much, Rich. I know there's more to share.
No problem.
But please, you make sure we've already shared the link to Arjijo as well as your personal email address at Arjijo. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to Rich and Della. They're incredibly helpful with anything that you would like to know and that we were not able to cover today. So Rich, thank you once again.
Thank you very much
for this. And we will keep us posted, please. Hey.
Chat soon. Thanks a lot. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
So next, I would like to very warmly welcome Louise. Louise Cotter is not just the co-owner of Cotter Safari, 1920 Safari Camp, but she is also the chairman of the Long Runs board and has been very instrumental and very helpful to myself and to all of us, and to getting the Long Run to where it is today. It's a journey for us as an organization as well, and Louise can attest to that. But like every business, we keep on going, and it is a journey, and we will persevere. Thank you so much, Louise.
Thank you. And before I do my very short presentation, I just want to say I'm so inspired. I've been listening for the last few hours, and I feel like the old kid on the block with so many new concepts and ideas that are exciting. It really, this is what keeps me going. And I think it's this peer-to-peer learning that is so important. So thank you very much. Just want to check that you've got the screen now. Is it showing?
I can see the screen and it's loading. I think it's just changing. Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. So I'm Louise from Cotter Safaris. I'm one of the founders and shareholders. We have a property in the Masai Mara, which includes a camp and a bush villa. We're very small. We were one of the first to become a long run global ecosphere retreats. We were the first after the non-founding members. So the first to go through the long GER journey. And again, have learned so much from our peers. What makes us perhaps stand out in the Mara? There's lots of conservancies. We have worked with the community over a decade to develop a conservancy that is truly community owned. So there's 7,300 members to the conservancy that we lease and manage. We're also known for our impact activities. We've got 23. We developed them to be engaging and inspiring and fun, but that also showcase the issues that we felt mattered for the context in which we find ourselves. We are a best ecologically responsible property in Africa as awarded in the recent Safari Awards. So that's all my plugs done. I am going to do a short video and then go to some pretty unsexy things that probably don't sell tourism, but I think may be of interest. So this is literally a 20-second video. So our challenges and this session for us is very much about trying to share not the packaged sort of version of ourselves, but some of the things that we really face on that front line of being on community land and working in tourism and conservation. As mentioned, we work really hard with the community, not only to get a conservancy that was community owned, but to support the community in getting their own legal land rights. And so we supported 6,300 members and paid for the process to get their land adjudicated and title deeded. So in conservation, that's been a really long journey. It's not quite finished, but hopefully will provide a more equitable process for land ownership in conservation. In terms of community, in many of the other conservancies, there's a handful of men that primarily sort of own a conservancy. We've tried hard to really make sure it's equitable. And the Masai Mara, the Masai population is doubling every 6.5 years. So there is a genuine issue around population growth and impact, both in terms of human development and opportunity, as well as conservation and impact on biodiversity. In terms of culture, we have found, particularly with Maasai culture, there's a lot of negative showcasing, can the Maasai jump? How high? Can they jump for clients? And so we have worked with the community to try and perhaps show a different face of Maasai culture. And in terms of commerce, how do you balance trying to support 6,300 landowners with trying to run a business, with trying to support conservation? So trying to find a formula that works. Some of our solutions, so I've mentioned the land tenure and supporting the communities. I think one of the biggest sort of multi-generational, non-sexy issues we're doing is working with the Ma Trust in offering an integrated free health program for community members. We have health teams that come out with backpacks and deal with a lot of different issues and offer choices, including family planning choices. We've seen an uptake of 90% in family planning, which shows the area we're in is probably the most sort of removed from other communities in the Masai Mara and isolated. So we've seen a great uptake in family planning, and that will have a long-term impact, particularly when you're looking at population growth every 6.5 years on an environment that is already strained with overgrazing and so on. We, in terms of culture, have a great social media platform. With TikTok, we've got close to, I think, 100,000 followers now. And we work with the community to try and showcase what they want showcased for our culturally related posts. We are aiming and have had success to reach, we've reached 5 million views per year on TikTok. And some of it's really quirky and fun. It's very authentic. It's not professionally done, but we're very proud to showcase not only culture that you don't see perhaps, but also some of the things that happen on safari that are not the glossy lion, baby lion or baby rhino, but more sort of the holistic component of being on safari, whether it's the cuisine or just, the morning sunrise. So we're really trying to use social media to promote culture and engage in culture. And then in terms of commerce, we are trying to get that balance of metrics to understand where we sit, with emphasis on, profits, investments in community, investments in conservation and biodiversity and culture. I would say, if I'm being really honest, that we're not there yet, and there's a lot of room for improvement. We've won lots of awards and we're compliant on a lot of things, and we do well relative to our competitors. But I think if we're being really, really honest, we can all do better. And I think for me, the next iteration will be to really have solid metrics that show the connection between conservation, community, culture, and our investments. So it's not just saying we do this, it's saying we do this and this is the impact it's had from investment to conservation, or from conservation to community, or from community practices onto conservation. And I think there's a lot of work to be done in that field, and there's a lot of work to be done to go to the next iteration of linking to biodiversity. So we're really excited about that. I'm not going to spend more time on it because I do feel that we're behind schedule, and I would like very much for the long run to keep on schedule as the chair. So I'm going to yield some of my time, if that's okay, back to the long run members so we stay on track.
No, that is very kind. We are actually on time. We have put in lots of fail safes just in case, but yes, you never know with these virtual things how things are going, and it's incredible, to be honest, to see everybody's story. So can I then ask Louise, maybe before we move on to Miriam, to from your perspective, being a businesswoman, working in the industry, are there any lessons learned when it comes to integrating sustainability, trying to have that holistic approach? Is there anything that you feel like others would be really helpful to know or for you to share to make sure we can inspire others to start their journey?
Honesty, I think. Honesty is really, really important. You can't package sustainability in a way that is wrong, but you can also not be authentic. So I think that's really important. We're looking actually at not offsetting. We're never going to reach carbon zero just by our own actions, no matter how hard we try. And we have a backyard that's really important. But it's too small really to do offsetting effectively. So we're looking at an honest approach to carbon monitoring and insetting. It's different. It's a different approach, but we think it's probably more relevant for our context and more worthwhile to have results stay where we are.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And just on the notion of monitoring, I think also one of the questions earlier that was posed is like, we are really also as the long run trying to support our members to understand the impact, but then also monitor where it is. So we've been going through different iterations, but with the 4Cs, it's a great framework, and within it there are lots of different indicators to look into, whether, like people were saying, is the amount of supplies sourced locally, number of people employed, the changes driven in our community. We are really keen to support our members, both accommodation but also travel businesses, to increasingly monitor where their impact lies, because we feel that the more we can credibly communicate and transparently communicate where we're at, the easier it will be to cut through this noise of sustainability, regenerative, all of it, and really just talk about impact on the ground and being truthful. None of us are perfect. I don't think I've ever seen anyone who is perfect, but it is about trying to strive for being better at what we do. And that is for us as individuals, as a collective, as the long run. I think we all just want to strive to be better. And I think that's really important. So for us, monitoring is really key, but it is, like everything else, also a journey. So Louise, thank you so much.
Can I just add one thing on that? Or two
always.
things? The long run is updating its 4C framework. So that's going to be really exciting and hopefully a game changer in terms of making it easier to align in different reporting formats across the board. And then secondly, the long run will be attending the Madrid inaugural event of the ESG framework for tourism business, run by the United Nations on Monday. I am hopping over there. So I think that is, getting that piece right is going to be really important. Thanks, Anne.
No, totally. And I think, for us, the standard was developed with best practice in mind and on the ground, trying to see what does best practices look like if people putting their hearts and their minds to it. And it's been a great pleasure actually trying to see now, having gone through it for a while, there's so much more we can now aspire for. So the new standard is going out for public consultation on October 1st. So we are then going to launch it later this year, early next year, and making sure that we again can push the boundaries that little bit further. What is next for all of us to make sure we can strive for really excellence across the industry and across everything we do. So Louise, thank you so very much. I really appreciate the prompt as well to tell us a bit more about the standard. Thank you, thank you. So without further ado, I now hand over to Miriam, who is the Chief Operating Officer for Saruni Basecamp. She is a powerhouse, and Saruni Basecamp has hugely expanded over the last few years. And she will tell us a little bit more what the forces look like there. But Miriam, you may want to put your video down a little bit. We would love to see all of your beautiful face, so we can hear your story. That is incredible to share with everyone. Yes, perfect. I like it. Maybe even a little bit more other ways. I can see. That would be amazing. Yay, perfect. Thanks so much, Miriam. I hope I can see your presentation, so we are all good.
Thank you very much, Anne. Thank you, the Long Run members and teams. Thank you, Louise. And I think that was very encouraging and very inspiring to hear. I am presenting for Saruni Basecamp. Like Anne said, Saruni Basecamp is a safari company operating in the Masai Mara, southwest of Kenya, and Samburu. We run a portfolio of 12 properties span around those regions. And operation is rooted in our main purpose of being custodians of the web of life. We promote responsible tourism that ensures we leave very little impact in terms of negative impact on the land and its people. We offer exclusive experiences to our guests in these regions, obviously delivered by indigenous communities of the Masai and Samburu communities, who we obviously know are marginalized. We're also proud members of the Long Run, with 4 of our camps holding individual memberships, and we're passionate not only about conservation, but we're strong believers that the local communities or the host communities must and should benefit from their tourism revenues. In terms of the challenges that we work to resolve, we're talking about conservation. We have increased human demand, and that's, I think, across board and has been experienced by the most of operators. Increased human demand for natural resources. We have had the challenge of land division, and like Chris mentioned, population growth brings more members in families that want to own their own pieces of land and they want to be independent. There's also been unsustainable resource use, and mainly perhaps because of lack of education or awareness of the benefits that conservation can bring. And that leads to environmental degradation and obviously severe and more severe impacts of climate change as we go in terms of dealing with population increase, this competition of very minimal resources and the use of these resources by the growing population. In terms of community, there's been lack of awareness on sustainable practices. Poverty has been key, and according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, we have figures showing 60% of unemployment rates in some of these communities. There has also been inequality in sharing tourism benefits because not everybody gets to the table where some of key decisions are made or policies are cut. And that has excluded the marginalized communities for the longest. In terms of culture, because of the guests and the nature and profile of guests that we get in our properties and in these tourist destinations, there's always the erosion and the risk of erosion of culture due to Western influences. These communities have traditionally suffered from early child marriages and female genital mutilation, as we know. And livestock has been the main source of livelihood, obviously fostering dependency on that only source of income. In terms of commerce, there has been lack of because obviously not everybody builds and believes or had believed in this model of conservation. And there has also been insufficient infrastructure for responsible tourism and having a lot of resistance from the traditional model of running the tourism business. In terms of resolution, coming to conservation, we came to conclude that the only way it can work is involving the community, and we run community-based conservancies across our regions of operation. We also thought to introduce efficient resource management and use of that which we have from nature, like rainwater harvesting, introducing waste management practices in terms of teaching the community 3 R's of reduce, reuse, and recycle. We build our camps in a way that if we were to unpack, we would leave that area and that specific spot just as we found it. We ensure there's zero impact in the building materials we use. So all our camps are eco-friendly, using eco-friendly materials, and ensure that we also embed eco-friendly practices in our day-to-day operations. In terms of the community, we have endeavored to improve the skill and upskill community youth. We have built a wildlife tourism college, a college of international repute and standards, and obviously upgrading from what we used to have as Koyaki Guiding School that used to offer only guiding, but now the Wildlife Tourism College has expanded curriculum, offering hospitality courses and also wildlife management. We create employment opportunities in our camps. As you see, we have 12 camps across the Masai Mara and Samburu area. And we continue to educate communities and our teams on benefits of tourism and effects on climate change. We include the community, and like I said before, it doesn't work if the community, who are the custodians of the land and the conservation elements that we're trying to get involved in, if they're not involved, then it really would be a futile exercise. In terms of culture, we thought about how to improve or conserve the cultural, the culture of the Maasais and the Samburu, especially, and for Maasai Mara especially, we built an information center. We call it Njolata Information Center. Njolata is a Maasai word, means like Eureka, what has been hidden is revealed. And here we have exhibition halls showcasing the culture, the conservation, and linking the conservation story in terms of the local impact of climate change to the global perspective. And here we allow the local communities as well as our guests to come and have cultural immersion. In this center, we also have a workshop where we preserve the beading culture, and about 250 women come daily apart from 2 days in the week, which is the market day on Wednesday and Sundays when they go to church, and do their beadwork, which we sell in our curio shops across the camps. We foster inclusive growth, and to encourage female employment, we have family-friendly facilities in some of our camps where young mothers are allowed to come with their children, fostering inclusivity and ensuring that they are not condemned to being housewives and raising families only as the whole responsibility of a woman in these communities. So we show that you can be able to balance family, career, and also go to use the education that you went to school for. So we really big champions of female employment, and in terms of inclusions of cultural elements in our camp interiors, we ensure that every camp has interiors depicting the local culture or some artifacts from the beadwork or from the community. In terms of commerce, we have sought collaborations and partnerships with like-minded organizations and people. We also involve ourselves with the government in terms of engagement and seeking position on the table so we can influence policy and implementation of that policy as well. We promote responsible tourism as a sustainable income alternative and got the community buy-in that you're not losing what you traditionally know as the main source of income, but there's an alternative that doesn't force you to actually lose what you traditionally used to. The outcomes of this has been rewarding, I must say. In terms of conservation, we operate in 6 conservancies across the regions that we operate in Mara and Samburu, conserving 1.2 million acres. And in terms of biodiversity conservation, 8 of mammal species in these conservancies have been classified as vulnerable and endangered. 95% of our waste through our camps is recycled, translating to approximately 1,000 kilograms of carbon dioxide, and greenhouse gas emissions mitigated, that is annually. We plant through a guest of 170,000 trees annually, and this helps them offset their carbon through from their travel. All our camps are solar powered, 100%, and we use only biodegradable products in our housekeeping and kitchens. In terms of conservation, we are also key in rhino conservancy. We have in one of our conservancies at Sera in Samburu, a rhino sanctuary, where we have 22 black rhinos, and recently relocated 4 white rhinos and 1 got a baby. So we now are very happy that we have 5 white rhinos at the Rhino Sanctuary in Sera Conservancy. And actually the recent White Rhino Day was celebrated at this sanctuary with the Cabinet Secretary of Tourism in attendance and gracing the occasion. The first company in East Africa to offer a guest on foot black rhino tracking at this Sera Conservancy at the Rhino Sanctuary, which we still do, and it's very well received by our guests. In terms of the community, the outcome is over 6,000 families have improved livelihoods with shared drinking water with over 400 families. The World Tourism College has been very successful in not only offering the expanded curriculum, but has turned to a research hub also in partnership with international universities in South Africa and also in Europe. So that is coming up very well with the first graduation happening this year. They just did their exams. In addition, our partnership with this World Tourism College, we're bringing, previously they could only test bronze certification in this college, but now through our partnerships and pushing with Kenya Professional Guides Association, this year in November, we will be able to see silver and gold examinations offered at this college, which is very rewarding. We also have an internal academy that we call Saruni Base Camp Academy, where we offer youth from the community an opportunity to get industry skills and exposure. Over the last 2.5 years, we have had 100 interns go through this program that runs for 6 months, and 80% of these have been absorbed in employment across our camps and other camps within our regions. 86% of employees, which is about 350 plus, are from the indigenous communities. The Basecamp Maasai brand, that is a bidding project, supports 250 women and their families. And some of these women are actually younger women who are daughters and daughters-in-law of older women, coming to carry on and ensure that this project and this preservation of bead work is sustained and there's continuity. We have conducted, like this year alone, 86% external training for We have conducted external training for 86% of our staff this year to date. And obviously, most of these are from the indigenous community, exposing them to very technical trainings, and some of which are for international standards in hospitality departments. Our foundation scales and continues to scale our community-based projects, conservation projects, and has been working with 18 implementing partners. And this year alone, we have spent over $2 million in different community and conservation projects and in building livelihoods in key thematic areas touching on education, health, conservation, and all that is on a scaled approach. In terms of culture, our Angelata Cultural Center provides a very immersive experience for guests. We also open it up to students during holidays. Various school students come to just learn about wildlife, get exposure to bidding, and also get space to do their homework. And they also interact with our camp managers and heads of departments to just get insights on what hospitality is all about. In terms of the Base Camp Maasai brand workshop, we have, like I said before, 250 women benefiting from this project. These families have now clean drinking water. All of them have tanks, like 5,000 liter water tanks where they harvest rainwater. A lot of them, and almost actually all of them, have clean cooking gas. They use clean energy for cooking now. Before they used firewood, but now all of them have gas cookers. They have solar lamps. The children can do homework with proper lighting. And some of these are the benefits that these women have reaped from these projects. 100% of our guides are local, as we believe it's best that the locals tell their story, and our guides spend most of the time with our guests, and so we feel they are the best to tell their story and what we do in terms of conservancy, culture, and our community initiatives from an authentic angle. We are a local company. 100% of our employees at Saroni Base Camp are local, and by local I mean Kenyan. We have management at camps. 55% of them are from the indigenous communities, from Maasai and Samburu people. 25% of our employees are female. We are looking to grow that progressively. Like we always say, it's a journey. In terms of cultural support, we observe 1 day per week, which is Fridays, where all our employees dress in traditional attire. If in Samburu, you dress in Samburu traditional attire. If in Mara, you dress in Maasai traditional attire, and we serve local cuisine for our menus on that day for dinner. All our camps and design adopt a cultural element, either from camp design. There are some of our camps that have taken the traditional shape of Maasai or Samburu houses, and interiors all depict some elements of the local culture. We support and we continue to support the annual cultural festival, that is a cultural festival. Last year it was held in Masai Mara at Sekenani, and this year we are hosting it in Samburu in November, and we're expecting about 10,000 people, which is very exciting, which is a very good platform for cultural preservation. In terms of commerce, like my colleague Luis mentioned, managing landowners spanning to over 6,000 landowners is no small feat in terms of administration. So we have over 6,000 landowners who benefit from over $2 million in tourism revenue annually, and that goes all to the indigenous community. Over 200,000 of our annual procurement is directly from indigenous community, and we do 100% local procurement. The bidding work gets about $64,000 that goes directly to the women. this beadwork, we help them sell through our shops and online, and we only take 25% of the sales proceeds. 75% go to the women directly. In terms of diversity and inclusion, like I said before, 25% of our employees are female, 48% are youth, 53% across board, including our head office, in terms of management, are female. We thrive in external validation because we can really beat ourselves to say we're doing our best, but the best may not be good enough. So we are members of the long run, like I said before, and we are committed to continuous learning and partnerships within long run members and learning from each other and supporting each other. We also seek external validation as members of ecotourism. Of our camps are gold rated for silver, and we recently went through an audit by Tourism Regulatory Authority, which is a government body charged and mandated with regulating standards in the hospitality industry. Again, for our camps were accredited the highest mark of quality, that is gold accreditation, and 4 were accredited silver. In terms of our future and looking ahead, we're very keen on our strategic investments, and having run this model for several years, we're looking to continue scaling the model and perfecting it through new camps and continuous improvement in our current facilities. In terms of conservation, through our foundation-based Camp Explorer Foundation Kenya, we continue to build conservancies. And not just conservancies, it's community-owned conservancies. The host communities must own the conservation story and must benefit from it. In terms of community, we obviously continue to encourage locally owned solutions, even to the global challenges of climate change, for example, and all the over-tourism challenges that we have had across these presentations. We seek to improve on our CapEx investments by embracing innovation and technology, and obviously continue to embrace emerging trends and leverage on all the upcoming eco-friendly technologies. We seek to prioritize climate change as it is more real than ever before, and I think Kenyans can attest to this, especially this hit closer home this year when we experienced massive flooding in various parts of this country. We continue to build and strengthen our journey in the long run as we continue to integrate the forces in every aspect of our operations across the vast landscape. And like you see, our camps are spread out in these very huge areas, and we want to ensure every camp stands alone and if possible, grow the membership individually and continue to reflect these principles in each and every operation. So that's where we're looking into the future, and continue our commitment as a business and the foundation. Like you see, between the business and the foundation this year or annually, we're funding about $4 million to the communities, conservation and building resilient livelihoods. That underscores our commitment that we need for the long run. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Miriam. Always an inspiration what you guys are doing. It's been a huge privilege, and I'm very excited that our regional meeting next year for the cluster here in East Africa is going to come to Saroni Base Camp. So very happy to come and see some of your newer properties. I know we are running a little bit behind time, but I just thought if you could just maybe elaborate a little bit. You mentioned female employment quite a few times. Why do you choose to have such a focus on female employment, but then also with the expansion that Saroni Base Camp has gone through, how do you maintain those strong values, activities across the 4 Cs despite expansion? How do you keep it neat and tight?
Thank you, Anne. Yes, we're very particular about female employment, and particularly because the areas where we operate in are marginalized communities. And traditionally, these communities, the role of women is primarily to get married at the age of the earliest age possible. These communities are the highest teenage pregnancies and teenage forced marriages. So it is the urge to turn around this situation and give women an equal opportunity to make a living and to be in the same platform as men. These communities are very patriarchal, and the woman's voice is not supposed to be heard. It's literally like it's supposed to be seen and not heard. Your job is cut out. It's make babies and take care of families. But we also including men and telling men, you're taking your daughters to school now, and you're not taking your daughters to school to only end up being housewives and to be married and to just be at home, but trying to show them you can support them to be to run families, to be mothers, and to be good wives, and as well pursue their career objectives and desires. So that is working well. 3 years ago, we had about 10% of female employees, and what would happen is after college, they would get employment. Within a year of employment, they're pregnant. And then there is competing factors and responsibilities, and what is sacrificed is your career. So the community looks at you as a bad mother because you're not home, you're leaving your 5-month-old baby with your mother-in-law or your mother, and your husband is jeered because your wife is not home and is not taking care of you. So it's just changing the mindset and embracing change that we can find a balance in all this, and one does not have to suffer. So that is why we're so driven in female employment and have grown the numbers from 10% to 25%, and we hope to continue growing that to 30%, which is the national threshold. In terms of ensuring that we retain the forces and the principles of forces integrated in our operation in every camp across, even as we grow, it is our DNA. Every meeting in our camps and every department is aware of what the forces is about, and every day you work, you're thinking which C applies to what I'm doing, and that way we are able to bring it from bottom up, so that it is the teams on the ground implementing the forces and not the managers telling the teams to do forces or to implement forces. So when it is a ground-owned solution, it is easier to spread it out and effectively implement it and embed it in our operations. So that is how we do it, and that's how it works, even with growth of new camps.
Thank you so much, Miriam, and I think you're doing an incredible job at that. There's always more we can do, more we should do, but we also cannot do everything at once. I think that's also an important thing to do, is like to put one foot in front of the other. So Miriam, thank you again so very much. Any questions that we haven't addressed yet, we will forward them to you, and make sure if you have a question still for Miriam, just put them in the chat, and then we will make sure we forward them to her. We have also shared, Miriam, your email address to us to make sure everybody can reach you and hear more about your amazing story. So thank you so very much once again. Next, thank you, and see you real soon. Hey?
Thank you.
Next, I would love to welcome Eloise from Borana, who is very kindly introducing 2 of our great members who are based on Borana. Eloise, I'm going to let you talk. We are slightly running behind, as always, because there's so many amazing things to be told. So I let the floor leave to you so that we can then be back on time, so we can go into our panel discussions with everything. Is that okay?
Yeah, totally fine. Thanks, Anne, and yeah, very happy to be here. Nice to hear everybody's story. I'm going to try and whiz through Borana and Lengishu. There's always quite a lot to talk about, but I'll try and get through it as fast as possible. So As Anne said, my name is Eloise. I am from Borana Conservancy in Kenya. I am going to talk to you today about Borana Lodge and about Lengishu House, which are two properties on the wider Borana Conservancy landscape. Rich, who was talking about Arajiju earlier, kind of touched on a few things, but yeah, I'll try not to repeat ourselves too much. So Borana Lodge became a globally long-run member in 2015, and we have been a global eco-sphere retreat since 2019. So you can see the lodge here on the side of this hill. This kind of gives you a quick overview of the Conservancy. So in 2012, the Lewa Borana landscape, well, kind of the beginnings of the Lewa Borana landscape were formed. Borana introduced black rhino in 2013, some of which were translocated from Lewa. And once the rhino had established their habitats, we dropped the fences between Lewa and Borana in 2014. So the landscape is now home to over 260 black and white rhino, with an amazing population of about 60 lion. We've got 14% of Kenya's Grevy's zebra population and a lot more interesting species. So Borana Conservancy is home to 3 long-run members. We've got 2 GR members, so Borana Lodge and Lengishu, who I'm going to talk to you about today. And then we've got a fellow member, Arajiju, who Rich spoke about earlier. Everybody on Borana kind of subscribes to the same sustainable principles of local employment, recycling, that sort of thing. So the hope is to make Borana Conservancy, along with our kind of surrounding community partners, long-run destinations and long-run members in the future. We have got over 500 employees on the Conservancy, and that includes the 6 tourism properties that we've got on Borana. And across all of the Conservancy and all of the properties, we've got about a 70% local employment rate. So I'm going to start talking to you first about Borana Lodge. I'll just give you a quick overview. So Borana is one of the main economic drivers for this landscape. All of the retained earnings are invested back into the core operational costs of Borana Conservancy and the different conservation efforts we've got going on beyond Borana as well. So Borana Lodge opened in 1993. It was one of the original eco lodges in the area. We have got 8 bedrooms and 6 cottages. We are bound by a joint venture agreement on the number of vehicles that we're allowed on the Conservancy. So it's kind of very low density tourism. We try and have as little an impact on the ecosystem as possible. So that, of course, means that we are 100% solar powered. We've got an extensive recycling system. We have a zero landfill policy. And we try and make sure that our guests go beyond the game drive. So they aren't spending their entire time in a vehicle. They are getting involved with our rangers, tracking rhino on foot, riding horses, e-biking, fly camping, visiting the farm, visiting local communities and schools, and much more. So we try and make it a bit more of an exciting safari experience. So our challenges, I mean, there are lots, but I'm just going to mention a few of them. So for culture, the main challenge in this part of northern Kenya is access to basic healthcare. We also have kind of teenage pregnancies and period poverty, but especially in the communities that are north of us, they're very remote and they don't necessarily have clinics or any kind of healthcare professionals that they could speak to on a regular basis. In terms of community, our main challenge that we've been tackling is the lack of environmental and ecological education. A lot of people who live close to protected areas and close to wildlife may or may not have seen a rhino in their lifetime. So it's quite important to make sure that we tackle that head on. And then our challenge with conservation, as I mentioned, Borana kind of focuses on rhino conservation, but our real challenges at the moment lie beyond the boundaries of Borana Conservancy. So environmental degradation across parts of this landscape in northern Kenya and even across the world is one of the most significant challenges to us and our neighbours at the moment. And for commerce, the supply chain in the safari industry is pretty opaque in some places. There are quite a lot of different people between the traveller and the place that they're going to visit. So it's quite difficult for properties to get a clear view of the guest before they arrive, but also there is a commission taken in each of those steps. So our average commission is about 20 to 30%. And this is off our published rack rate. So it's kind of one of the biggest challenges is trying to ensure transparency across this supply chain. So the solutions that we've come up with for the kind of healthcare solution is our mobile clinic. So the Brana Mobile Clinic was started in 2005 in partnership with the Ministry of Health. And it is a clinic which is based out of the back of a Land Rover with 2 nurses and a driver, and it visits 10 remote communities on a 2-week rotation. So the clinic provides basic healthcare, family planning, child inoculations, antenatal advice, HIV awareness, health talks and lectures. And this just makes sure that people have a reliable and kind of responsible source for their healthcare. For the community, we have recently launched the Mazingira Centre. It opened officially in 2022. Mazingira Yetu means our environment in Swahili, and the centre is a conservation education centre which provides education days for children from local schools as well as adults from local community groups. So we've also got the Mazingira Express, which is a modified school bus which acts as a game drive vehicle for students to go on education guided tours around the Conservancy. And they touch on a huge array of different subjects, all the way from kind of soil health, all the way up to food chains, wildlife, different species, that sort of thing. So for conservation, we have, it's kind of quite a broad or quite a complicated issue that we're trying to solve. But one of our projects is called the Mayanat Regeneration Project. So Mayanat is a community-owned group branch north of us, and we provided financial and technical assistance and guidance to the owners of Mayanat to create a land restoration project. So with the people who live on Mayanat, we've created a system of swales which have been designed to capture an estimated 3 million litres in surface runoff water. These swales were built in about 1 or 2 months with the help and input of the local community and the people who live in Mayanat. So the purpose of this was to restore degraded rangeland, repairing erosion, and increase water infiltration, which in turn then will increase ground cover. So the project was launched as a demo site, and it is about 600 acres, but the hope is that it would expand across Mayanat and even on a wider scale expand across northern Kenya. The demo site was completed last year, and we've been involved in maintaining the site, but most importantly, this is a project that is led by the people of Mayanat, and it is not something that we have come in, built and left. It is very much something which we hope is scalable and is replicable across the landscape. Another way that we, or another kind of project, another solution in our conservation bracket is something called share stock. So a lot of private conservancies or private wildlife conservation areas, including Brana, are underutilizing their rangeland. So that then leads to the reduced carrying capacity for wildlife and livestock. But then, on the other hand, a lot of community-owned land and conservancies suffer from overgrazing, which then also reduces the carrying capacity for wildlife and livestock. So the idea with share stock is that we combine community and private land in a cooperative management plan. So that then kind of relates to cattle within the wider ecosystem. So traditionally, a lot of the pastoralist communities who are our neighbours would have had privately owned but communally managed livestock. But at the moment, livestock is privately owned and privately managed, which in turn leads to overall degradation. So share stock aims to move back to privately owned livestock, which is managed communally, which moves across the landscape together. So share stock is a kind of collective ownership model, which simplifies or aims to simplify livestock management, and importantly, gives pastoralist communities fair access to natural capital, which has historically been a history of conflict. So the aim is to restore degraded rangeland, improve the carrying capacity across the wider ecosystem, generate financial gains for the local pastoralist communities and for the livestock owners, but also all of this should hopefully keep the traditional values of these pastoralist communities intact. So in order to kind of test this theory and to test this project, we're using a combination of ecological outcome verification methods, mainly guided by the Savory Institute. And we are using baseline monitoring systems. So we're monitoring water infiltration, bare ground cover or ground cover and bare ground, as well as biodiversity in the soil and in the plants. So this will hopefully will help us make decisions in the future and prove that livestock can be a force for good in reversing land degradation. So on to commerce, what we have, in order to kind of clarify the supply chain in the safari industry, we have replaced the traditional conservation fees, or what you'd find in national parks as park fees, with a minimum 24% contribution to conservation for each guest who stays at Barana Lodge. So for Barana Lodge, we've created an all-inclusive rate, and 24% of this inclusive rate is invested into a variety of 4C projects across Barana and beyond. And agents then take their commission of the remaining 76%. So this means that in high season, when rates have usually higher, guests contribute more to the landscape. But importantly, this is then reported with full transparency to each guest who stays at the lodge. And we have done this with help of the long run in the impact bill, which we give to each guest on arrival. So a quick overview of our impact. You can kind of see the amount of curatives year to date and immunizations. The mobile clinic travels an amazing amount of kilometers every month. So it really does have a positive impact on people who would otherwise be a little bit too remote for repeat healthcare. The Mavengere Yetu Centre has had 765 students visit this year and 555 adults as part of community groups. And for the Mayanat project and ShareStock project, as I mentioned, the Mayanat project, we estimate has or holds about 3 million litres of surface runoff each time it rains. And with ShareStock, we've currently got 4,000 head of cattle, but the way this model works, we could scale it up to 25,000 if we need to. So for Barana Lodge, via the 24% contribution to conservation, we this year have committed $730,000 or just over $730,000 to the 4C projects across Barana. So Anne, I was going to end there on Barana, but Anne has asked me to kind of carry on through. And
is that okay?
Yeah, of course, that's totally fine. So I'm now going to carry on and chat to you all about Lengishu. So Lengishu is also on Barana Conservancy, as I mentioned. It is a global ecosphere retreat accredited in January this year, which we are very proud of. A quick overview of Lengishu. We opened in 2019. It is exclusive use, similar to Arajiju. It's got 6 bedrooms, so we take a maximum of 12 adults. It is 100% solar powered. As Rich said, a lot of the kind of recycling program, or all of the recycling program that we have, is based out of the Barana Conservancy headquarters. So all of the properties kind of do their recycling through Barana Conservancy. And Lengishu also has a kind of extensive wastewater recycling system. Across Lengishu staff, we've got a 60% local employment rate, with the others being kind of heads of department who have got very specific skills. And we also have a tree planting initiative for staff and guests within the fenced area of Lengishu. So kind of trying to regreen the area with indigenous trees. So the challenges that Lengishu has, as Rich mentioned, it's kind of a bit complicated because we are part of the wider Barana projects. It's quite hard to kind of pinpoint what we've got as Lengishu on its own, but I'll kind of talk you through a couple of them. So culturally, there aren't a huge amount of employment opportunities for local women in the area. And the challenge with community is period poverty in local schools, with girls missing 5 days a month. So, you know, you can see how that kind of would affect your schooling career over the course of a year. So conservation-wise, as I mentioned, we're part of the larger Borana landscape. And then for commerce, which is much more of a kind of Lengishu scale, we have seen that there are not a huge amount of employment opportunities for local young people. And we've also, similar to Arajiju, found an issue with sustainable suppliers and their consistency. So the solutions to these, culturally, we buy beaded items from local women's groups. And this provides income for local women, but it kind of keeps their traditional skills alive. And we encourage our guests to go and meet the ladies at the Mazingira Yetu Center. They learn how to bead, they kind of make beaded items together. Community-wise, we have started a sanitary pad program for a school called Lokaseru. We're aiming to expand this program to the other schools around Borana Conservancy, but at the moment we're kind of struggling to find eco-friendly sanitary options. But we're doing quite a lot of research into this at the moment, so I'm sure we'll resolve that quite soon. So for the Conservancy, we are Lengishu contributes 1/9 of the annual core underwriting costs, as Rich mentioned. So that impacts the projects that I was speaking about earlier, as well as ranger salaries, mobile clinic, that sort of thing. So the solutions that we found for commerce are, we've created an in-house training program, and we take on interns from the local community. And we also plan to partner with Borana Lodge and other properties on the Conservancy to find sustainable suppliers, which would then give us more buying power over suppliers and meet minimum order requirements when necessary. The impact that we've had year to date, we have generated over $1,500 for the local women's group in just buying their beaded items alone. For the community, we have given 104 girls a year's worth of sanitary pads in only one school. So hopefully this will expand before the end of the year. For conservation, we generated over $150,000 to Borana Conservancy just in conservation fees of guests staying at Lengishu. So this does not include any kind of outside donations that our guests have been making. And then we have also had 11 interns come through our internship program and go through training within Lengishu House. And that's this year alone. And yeah, with our sustainable supplier initiative, this is very much the beginning. We are kind of pulling our heads together and our efforts together. So again, hopefully this will go from strength to strength before the end of the year. So I hope I've managed to whiz through everything. I feel like it was quite fast, but...
Love it. No, there is such an incredible story to be told around Borana. So I know there is so much more to share. But thanks for summarizing and for combining them. We were always very conscious, and now we are actually ahead of time. So I really appreciate it. Like, I'm just wondering, it's like, especially with having multiple operators on Borana, how do you try and work with everybody to make sure sustainability doesn't just permeate maybe, Borana Lodge, Lengishu, and Arajiju? How do we work with others to really make sure everybody within our ecosystem works on that? And then the second question is, Borana and Llewellyn, when I saw you over the weekend, it was really important, how it is important for Borana that we don't just look inside, but we look outside, and really making sure that our efforts are addressed to the communities we are surrounded by, looking at the wider ecosystem and the wider landscape. Why is that important for Borana? Where do you think, or are there any things that you can share with others as to, how can they go about that?
Yeah, so I'll touch on the first question. So, the thing for ensuring that everybody has kind of shared values with sustainability, I mean, it's having as small of footprint on this environment as possible, but it's also making things easy. So, with our recycling program, it's all based out of the headquarters, and it's allowing people an option to then recycle and to be responsible, and just sharing knowledge. So if we find a good solar kind of technician, then we will share that information around all of the other properties. This is kind of beyond Borana as well. We've got a couple of community owned and run lodges north of us that we also help a lot with that sort of thing. And your second question, you know, the thing that there's something called fortress conservation, which is, you know, very kind of insular, and you look inside and you are only interested in your benefit and the wildlife which is within your fences. And this has been proven time and time again that it doesn't work. You know, with Barana Conservancy, there have been so many projects outside of Barana and with Lewa as well. You know, there's been an education support program, there's been a mobile clinic with the local employment rate, making sure that everybody around us kind of moves forward together. And that, you know, not in a small part, but that has led to us not having a poaching incident in 10 years. So as long as you can make people kind of see the benefits of tourism, see the benefits of livestock and kind of responsible land management, then, you know, it means that you're all moving forwards together and you don't have this aspect of the grass literally being greener on the other side.
Yeah, which is definitely not what we want. We don't want to leave anyone behind. It's never easy, but I think it's really important that we work with everyone and find different ways that it works. I think the other thing is also like, you know, just because it's tried and tested in one place, it may not work in another, but having an open really important. So I don't know if there are any other questions. I haven't seen, but in case there are, Eloise, I will make sure that we are forwarding them to you. We have shared all the links and all of your email address as well, so people might reach out as well. But thank you once again so much. It's always incredible to see, and you know, thinking about the Garietta Center, which used to be, you know, a very old shed that I still have very vivid in my head. And now seeing the incredible center it can be, bringing the community together, has been really inspiring to see. I really enjoy that. So thank you so very much. We are actually going to have a little break. And as we are ahead of time, the break is not just 15 minutes, but 25 minutes, which is incredible. But I really appreciate everybody who has been with us all morning until now. We will resume at 2 o'clock CET with our incredible panel discussion on climate action in tourism. So please have a little break, stretch your legs, get some coffee, and then we will resume with the rest of the afternoon and the panel discussion. So thank you so much, everyone. Please stay with us. There will be more incredible impact stories to be told. Thanks, Eloise.
Thanks.
Bye.